I wanted, or my political understanding, as much as a feminist as I was that I didn't think it was fair that all the masculine virtues were the good ones that I want, like, intellect and bravery and, leadership and all. I thought, God, they haven't got a monopoly on them, right? And that all the feminine virtues were simpering and hopeless.
Yes.
And so I thought part of being, was grabbing back those as humanist values, and I was going to have some of them. And then, of course, now I'm considered to be the wrong kind of feminist, who wants to imitate men. And as you said, actually,
right.
But there is something weird, despite that, about the transgender question, right? There is something going on that's beyond the sort of liberation of fluidity. Something else seems to have happened, where many young people in this country now, there's a percentage increase in the number registering for clinical interventions on transgender questions has increased enormously. There's a certain fashion in schools of some sort, and it's a nerve-wracking business. If you're going to get no platformed in this country at university, Germaine Greer, regardless of what one thinks of Germaine Greer, the point is you only have to touch on this question. Ian McEwan, who is completely right on liberal, a novelist, dared to say the slightly wrong thing, and suddenly he kind of has to apologise and is kind of ridiculed and shamed. So I don't want to get you to say anything you don't believe, but I'm interested in it because I want to be for liberation. I'm not going to stop anyone dressing how they will. But there's something weird about lots of young women wanting to be young men and lots of young men wanting to be women. I don't feel as though it's a great step forward myself. Thoughts?
Well, I say in the introduction to my new book, my new collection, my particular transgender rebellion came at a time when there wasn't these ideas in the air, that the moment you are dissatisfied with the limitations of your present gender definition, that there is this enormous mechanism waiting to alter your body, to halt puberty, to slow your puberty down. People, all very well-meaning and very sympathetic, are there to provide surgical intervention and potential, permanent changes in your body with which there's no going back. Okay, for me, a sex change operation opens one door but closes many others. Right? So I personally believe that anyone who collaborates in an intrusion into a developing child's body and mind is guilty of child abuse, a crime against humanity, okay, because that child is not prepared to make such a decision, okay. I think that such decisions about sex reassignment surgery must wait when one attains a majority, which would be, it seems to me, a minimum of age 18. I'm very concerned with this because I think that it's become a fashion, okay, that the transgender definition has become a kind of convenient label for young people who may simply feel alienated, okay, culturally for many other reasons, okay. So that in the 1950s they might have become a beatnik, in the 1960s they might have become a hippie and taken mind-expanding drugs, okay. And so today you're encouraged to think that your alienation is because you are not totally defined, identifying with your particular inherited gender definition. So I'm very concerned about this. I think that a lot of it, I think that the collaboration of the bureaucratic machinery with it has to do with the assault on masculinity, okay? Okay, so you see, gender doesn't really exist. It's not really polarity. I mean, everything's all about expanding women's rights, but also terminating men, okay, and defining men out of existence. Masculinity is by definition toxic, okay? Masculinity doesn't exist. And you see, this is the proof of it. Now, I began all of my studies, my book, Sexual Personae, began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been fascinated, attracted, to the subject of androgyny, and that's what sexual personae is. I explored it in history, but the more I explored it, I realized that that historically the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture, okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel, okay, and that you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art, okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust, okay, in the archaic period suddenly began to seem like wet noodles, okay, toward the end, okay, and that the people who live in such periods, a late phase of culture, whether it's the Hellenistic era, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the Mauve decade of Oscar Wilde in the 1890s, whether it's Weimar Germany, people who live at such times, okay, feel that they're very sophisticated, they're very cosmopolitan, okay, homosexuality, heterosexuality, so what, anything goes, and so on, all right, but from the perspective of historical distance, okay, you can see that it's a culture that no longer believes in itself, okay, and then what you invariably get are people who are convinced of the power of heroic masculinity, okay, on the edges, whether they're the Vandals and the Huns, okay, or whether they're the barbarians of ISIS, okay, you see them, starting to mass on the outsides of the culture, and that's what we have right now. That there is a tremendous and rather terrifying disconnect between the infatuation with the transgender movement in our own culture and what's going on out there, okay, all right, and so I mean that's why I'm concerned. I feel it's ominous, okay. I question whether the transgender choice is indeed genuine in every single case. But what concerns me is when well-meaning adults, believe that they're helping people by making it easier some permanent change in the body from which there is no going back. For example, Brown University, one of the elite Ivy League schools in the United States, put sex reassignment surgery on its student insurance program. Okay, so that it becomes they can get a sex change in college. I thought, oh my Lord. Okay, I feel that's evil. Okay, because what it does to young people today facing an uncertain job market. Okay, what it says, people who are questioning their gender while they're at Brown University suddenly feel, well, it's like economically a better judgment for me to move now on this rather than to wait till I don't have a job and living in my parents' basement. Okay. So actually, the adult community trying to be understanding, okay, is, I think, involved in possibly making a permanent change in someone's life that could have tragic consequences.
Okay. So many more things I want to ask, but let me ask you if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like 3 or 4 at a time.
Few quick thoughts. Starting from your last point on transgender and reassignment, I was just wondering, because the issue of control features very much nowadays. I mean, it featured along in the Brexit campaign. I'm not going down that route. It featured a lot in politics nowadays. I was wondering whether young people are trying to give a sense to themselves that at least this is an area where they can exercise some control over their lives, as opposed to their jobs in a globalized world, as opposed to relationships, as opposed to, because increasingly there is no concept of a constraint anymore, of a family, of a structure. So just a thought on the last.
Yes, I mean, I think I'm very concerned that the issue of identity, okay, has shrunk down, okay, to merely a gender, your position on a big scale of a ruler. There's a tiny little infinitesimal gradations of gender, and has shrunk to the body itself, okay, and management of the body, and that is a sad consequence. I believe that identity should be much broader. So we're in this period of a particular kind of desiccated secularism. Now, as an atheist, I still am extremely interested in religions. I feel that world religion should be taught at the most fundamental level. Then we would understand much more about Islam and everything else right now. If people had been listening to me 25 years ago, all right? And I feel that identity should, like in my generation, 1960s, the people who took drugs, when they were searching for themselves, they discovered the universe through drugs. Okay, it was a vision liberation quest like that of the Native Americans. So there was a metaphysical dimension to their in a tremendous kind of cosmic distance, okay, to their self-identification. They were explorers of the universe, of ultimate reality beyond society. Today, this is sad to me, okay?
Yeah.
The idea that, oh, I am just the, how do you identify, okay? I am, you know, and there's like incredible range of things to choose from. Yeah, and that just shows you the failures of our educational system, okay, which has tried to make everyone feel good and to have good feelings about themselves and no bullying, et cetera, instead of giving them hard knowledge about the past, okay? And so, yes, go ahead.
And this leads
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on that depiction of the tough woman, because I got into a lot of trouble recently for signing off an article, as I many times have done, saying that women should be able to and should prove themselves to be as big and ugly and tough as men. And I got into a huge amount of trouble about this because people said to me, how dare you suggest that women should have to prove their strength, or that they should have to compete with an idea of strength. And actually it got me thinking about what you were saying at the start, that feminism in the past disparaged men to such a certain extent, said that it was men that was the problem, men were evil, all that kind of stuff. And now actually it's more about disparaging women, and it's saying that women shouldn't have to prove themselves to any kind of level of excellence or worth, whether that be represented by men or not, but that women need to be accepted in their weakness, accepted in their vulnerability. So do you think now that contemporary feminism has essentially failed women?
Yes, that every kind of excuse is being made for the preservation of a certain type of decorous bourgeois femininity, okay? I mean, that's what I think is going on here, okay? I identify much more strongly with a working class style, a style of the street. I mean, because I feel the street is like an arena where there is no law, and that working class women, African American, Latina, Italian American, have in their ability to, in their body language, right, and their voices, okay, take charge, take control of space much better than this bourgeois model of femininity that was typical of the 1950s and that now is encouraged, okay, in the classroom, in the elite schools in the United States. So, you know, I do think that there is this idea of decorum, almost a Victorian notion of decorum, of primness, of certain priggishness, okay, has come back. Now, it could be generational, because my generation of the 1960s, like that of the flappers of the 1920s, okay, was very interested in using language, you know, that was associated with swearing, you know, like sailors, and talking in a bawdy, lusty way, and breaking through the speech codes in the same way that you have Lenny Bruce, okay, was a great hero of, okay, and the police would come, okay, and arrest him in nightclubs, okay, because he was using words that were declared obscene, okay. So today, you have this withdrawal, okay, to me, really a regression, okay, to a pre-feminist stage of decorous and fragile femininity that I think is, I mean, this to me is not feminism, okay? This is actually anyone who espouses such a thing, anyone who thinks that women are so weak that they need the protections of society, okay, is just simply rolling back, you know, feminism. Okay? And I deny, okay, that any woman, okay, who argues for the protection, you know, of women in this way, okay, is not a true feminist.
I respectfully disagree with a lot of things you've said, but as a student, I think I'm going to raise some concerns about what you said about the university. I think in this debate, we've conflated two very different things, mollycoddling versus raising genuine concerns about structural gender and racial injustice in college and university campuses. I think what you call Generation Snowflake is a generation that recognizes diversity in the classroom and is more sensitive to the various kinds of injustices that students from all over the world come with. I'm from University of Oxford. I've been a participant in the Rhodes Must Fall movement. I think it's a convenient liberal argument to make for free speech by saying that, you know, just get over your problems. And what you said about spending time in the library and making education a personal enterprise, I think it's very easy to individualize these things from a position of privilege. But I think we should address greater concerns about very deep-rooted racial and gender injustices in our curriculum in the universities. let's not trivialize very important concepts like safe spaces and trigger warnings, because it's easy to pick up, small instances from schoolrooms and, destroy the whole concept of having safe spaces in the universities. But they do address some very genuine concerns about bringing more equality, equity, and diversity to the classrooms.
Okay, so that was an important contribution because it actually reflects far more the popular position than anything or many of the things that Camille, or in a much lesser way, I have said. That is the kind of resonance.
To use the phrase diversity, okay, and believe that this is the way diversity will be achieved, okay, through this privileging of authority, of surveillance, okay, from above, okay, I just simply disagree. I believe true diversity is achieved through a genuine multiculturalism, which I have been arguing for 25 years, would be based on the study of world religions in the classroom. I believe that is the true diversity, is to authentically study the other culture, not through this enforced diversity and again, a Victorian kind of a discourse with all kinds of circumlocutions to avoid giving offense, right? So again, I simply disagree with what you've said. I'm sorry.
And the truth is that there is a split in this room, undoubtedly at this festival and in society. And what I hope over the next 2 days that we can do is to argue and not hide away in safe spaces, which one can be glib about, but which I've actually read all of the literature on, which is why I'm so opposed to them, rather than I'm being glib. I know what the arguments are, I disagree with them, and people have got to argue for them rather than suggest that the person on the other side is being glib. So let's try and have that argument out and listen to each other and argue about it. Yes, you can. One last person after that.
And I think one of the problems and why we disagree, you see, is that there is much too much focus on the present. In other words, when the word diversity becomes a banner for let's remedy this in the present, I don't think that's the purpose of education. Okay, I think education is about opening the great past, okay, and of global cultures generally. Okay, more knowledge, more hard knowledge. Okay? So this migration, okay, this transformation of the classroom situation and of the university setting into a praxis to cure present problems, that is wrong. The university should be about abstract and detached study of the past, okay, and of the global present. It should not be about remedying problems. That is a social welfare agency issue.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.